Hello, hello. Okay, so today we're reading chapter 2 of A Space Adventure New Orders. So, this is book 1 in the Karma series. All right. Chapter 2 The Next Day. Today is the day. After 20 days and painfully long nights in the med bay, I'm finally being released into the world. Such that it is. In reality, all this means is that I'm being moved to my own quarters where I'll have some semblance of autonomy. The med staff will still check on me regularly just to make sure I continue to improve. I'm still not ambulatory, but they say if I gently start using my legs again, I could be in as little as a few days. They've attached some little electrode-like devices that are going to help my muscles rebuild. I keep forgetting that I'm wearing them and my pajamas catch on them whenever I rearrange my clothing or undress. Showers are back on the cards though. Woo! Apparently, as long as I promise to let the staff know ahead of time, I can use the shower in my new quarters. They said something about them needing to make sure someone can come running if there's a problem. I think they're worried about me falling. They've already put a chair in the shower for me, I'm told. I can't wait. They've done a sterling job of keeping me clean and relatively fragrant, but nothing washes off the emotional debris like a hot shower. Plus, I've not looked at my reflection for what feels like a million years. I'm probably due some serious upkeep before I even think about venturing into public. They may have kept the mirrors away from me on account of the cuts and bruises on my face. They don't know me, of course. I'm not that vain that I'd freak out over some cuts. But it would be nice to know what I'm dealing with. You ready? Nurse Pratchett poked her head around the wall that cut me off from the rest of the med bay. Her smile blistered my insides. It's unfair that someone else could be so happy while I carried all this sadness in silence. I straightened up, my butt numb from sitting up in bed for so long. Born ready, I assured her. I even smiled. It was a feeble attempt, but anything to convince them that it was indeed time for me to be let to my own devices. Good. Nurse Jones is going to help me get you settled. Just give us a moment. She disappeared behind the divide again. A minute later, Nurse Jones appeared with a wheelchair and helped me in. Just as I sat down, Pratchett reappeared and grabbed the sports bag I'd packed. It had all the things they'd given me since I arrived on board. The handheld and some toiletries. It also had the clothes I'd been wearing when I was rescued. I'd packed it already and left it on the bed, partly to show I was ready to leave, partly to streamline the process. Nurse Jones wheeled me across the med bay, chatting to me about the ship and what I could expect once I was up and about. I figured from the way he was talking, no one had told him I was only going to be on board for a few more days. He wheeled me out into the corridor and Nurse Pratchett followed behind us, calling instructions to her staff in passing. It felt strange being outside the med unit. The air felt softer. The lighting was different too, warmer, less sterile. The colour scheme was orange with yellow and beige tones. It was like something out of one of those TV show sets in space, ironically. You know, the ones where the women wore sexy attire and the men wore two-coloured jumpsuits and argued moral dilemmas. It felt surreal. As I was wheeled through the corridor, I started to feel woozy. Blue and purple tones are more comfortable for my species, but I wasn't going to complain. They'd been so good to me. Hopefully, the quarters will allow me to keep the lights low at least. I tried my best to acclimate. People passed by, mostly humans, busy going about their day as though everything were normal. Things moved fast compared to my life in the little cubby in the med bay. Each corridor looked like the next, and I tried to remember the left versus right turns we took, and where I could at least make my way back if I needed to. The inside of my head felt muddy. Stars and quasars knew how I was going to find my way around this place once I was under my own steam. I briefly wondered if I was dreaming. A couple more corridors, we stopped outside one of the many uniform doors. I noticed this one had a different type of designation. The code written on the door looked like it was a different category. Probably something to do with it being for guests? Who knows? Anyway, Nurse Pratchett came around from behind us and punched in a code. The door slid quietly open, revealing a pleasant-looking scene beyond. Plus, it was darker. Relief. Jones wheeled me in. Welcome to your new quarters. I'm sure you'll be comfortable here. You've got all the usual conveniences, replicator, computer access, entertainment system, including VR connection. I smiled as he gave me the spiel. The dude didn't want to shut up. It was cute. Plus, it meant I didn't have to find things to say. Nurse Pratchett moved past us and popped my bag down on the sofa. Then she busied herself checking various things in the rooms. Thank you, Nurse Jones. You can head back now. I'll be along shortly. From her tone, I wondered if she got perturbed by his constant chatter. Nurse Jones touched my shoulder. Good luck, kid. See you around. Kid? I was probably old enough to be his grandmother. I smiled. Thanks, Nurse Jones. I heard the door slide open again, but it sounded like Jones had bumped into someone in the corridor. Oh, the vegan girl. Yeah, we just delivered her to her quarters. Discharged her today. A second voice. I wonder if I might say hello. Go ahead. I'm sure she'll be glad to see you. I'm just heading out. Nurse Pratt. I fiddled with the wheelchair controls. They weren't intended for patient operation, clearly. After nearly taking off my finger, I just managed to turn myself around when Commander Hooflix stepped in through the open door. I hope I'm not intruding. My heart leapt into my mouth. Be cool. Remember, it's a rescue thing. Nothing more. Be cool. Hi, I managed, my voice catching in my throat. It's good to see you, Commander. Nurse Pratchett was still doing things elsewhere. I vaguely clocked her, testing the water in the bathroom and checking the cabinets. I'm glad to see you out of the med bay, the commander continued, his lilting, polite tone. I smiled. For the first time, it was genuine. Me too, I beamed. I mean, now that I'm out of med bay, not that you'd be in med bay or that I'd want to see you outside of the med bay specifically. Damn this crush. An airlock would be good just about now. He looked at me with a puzzled expression. Then a hint of understanding crossed his face. He seemed so human in many ways, and so not in others. Maybe it was some of the attraction. Humans didn't generally appeal to me. Not in that way. And not that I categorically wouldn't, but I kind of held them at the same distance I did even with most vegans. Apart from Cronus, of course, who was the exception. Maybe because he was so dependable. Machine-like? Well, that's one for my therapist, when I get one. I shoved the thought aside, along with a wave of guilt about crushing on someone a matter of weeks after I'd just been widowed. I sucked. My mind scrambled, searching for the next point of conversation. I need to keep him talking, build a rapport. Frack, this is hard. That's what she said. Damn it, focus. I'm pretty sure he could see me blushing, even though my blue hue would hide it better than it hid it for humans. I had no idea what I was about to say. I checked. Sorry, you go ahead, he gestured politely. We'd spoken at the same time. No, please, you go, I insisted. Saved. I was just going to say, I've been monitoring your progress from the medical reports. I'm glad to see that you will make a full recovery. Okay, I can work with that. My brain kicked out of spasm mode. Thank you, Commander. It wouldn't have been possible if you hadn't shown up when you did. Thank you again for pulling me out of there. You are, again, most welcome. I was only doing my job. He hesitated a moment, then continued. But I'm personally glad I could be of assistance. I smiled. That bit about being personally glad was something he didn't say last time. We both paused. Shit, I should say something else. My brain started to seize up again. But he stood there without speaking himself either, without looking agitated. He's an SLF, synthetic life form, an android, you might say. Perhaps he doesn't feel social awkwardness the same way everyone else does, I reminded myself. He's perhaps just giving me time to think. Maybe he understands. Maybe he's just assessing. Maybe I'm just projecting. Well, that's a big thought. But then everything we think and feel towards anyone is a projection. Even a bigger thought. An even bigger thought. And not the time. More noise from the other room. Nurse Pratchett appeared. Commander Hooflix! Nurse Pratchett, hello. I was passing by as Nurse Jones was heading out. He told me your patient had been discharged, and I came to offer my good wishes. The nurse smiled, almost knowingly, but with a hint of scepticism. That's very kind of you. Karma has made excellent progress. She'll even be walking in a few days. That is good to know, he replied, turning his attention back to me. Perhaps when you're well enough, I can show you around the chip. Gulp. I mean, that's literally code for, would you like to spend some time together, right? Right? I couldn't help it. I blushed and beamed at the same time. I'd like that. Yes, I blushed, even though my skin and blood are blue. I do indeed still blush. You would observe this as a darkening of the skin around my cheeks and my chest. It's not dramatic, but normally coincides with an uncomfortable sensation for me, like a dull prickling in the flesh, or a flash of adrenaline that washes over me and then subsides after a few emotionally uncomfortable moments. Needless to say, I hate it. The fact that it shows is even more disquieting. I pushed aside the creeping thought that maybe he was just being polite, just doing his job. Maybe everyone had to have a tour. Health and safety? Yeah, trust me to escalate a health and safety briefing to a date. Maybe one of the officers would have to do it. So it may as well be him. Either way, my daddy issues weren't complaining. I became aware of Nurse Pratchett's gaze boring into the side of my head. Commander Hooflix glanced at her too. Good, he concluded. I'll check on your progress soon then. And with that, he turned on his heels and headed out. The doors slid closed behind him. You know he's an android, right? Her tone was still jovial, but it had an edge of accusation to it. I shrugged. What should she care? I bit my tongue. I wanted to correct her. He's an SLF. She should be more respectful. She turned and started unpacking a bag of meds that she'd brought along with my sports bag. Don't go getting attached. I wondered if I should ask her if synthetic life forms were treated differently in other ways, but humans tend to take offense at questions like that. They assume they're being accused of something. I've noticed it tends to be those that have the most distancing attitudes that seem to be the most sensitive. Guess that's just how humans are. She glanced over at me. He doesn't have feelings in the same way biologicals do. I understand, I affirmed, trying to turn my wheelchair again. Maybe that was part of the appeal. That he was an emotional rock while I was such an emotional mess. After all, we seek the unclaimed pieces of ourselves through others, right? Nah, it was probably more just because he saved me. But on that account, I should hate him. I hate that I'm the one still alive and my whole world is gone. If he had got to us just a few moments sooner, he could have saved both of us. Instead, I'm here, trapped in this incessant hell, dying on the inside, while my physical cuts and bruises heal and everyone keeps saying how much better I'm doing. Yet on the inside, I feel worse. Oh, she was looking at me again. I know, I repeated. He's just... I sighed, looking for the most appropriate way to express my feelings while adequately playing them down. He's just easy to be around, I finished. Okay, so that wasn't accurate. I've seen him twice now, and since the rescue, and both times were just as awkward as hell. For me, at any rate. She eyed me suspiciously. On account of him not having his own emotions, she insisted. This must be her Mama Bear act. She has my medical records. She knows how old I actually am. Jones might not, but she knows. And yeah, all right, maybe I have that constantly confused air about me because humans are so puzzling. So the woman could be forgiven for thinking of me as her 20-something-year-old daughter. But still, I nodded gravely, turning my face away so she couldn't see me blushing. I'm not going to be here much longer, I pointed out. We'll be reaching at the space station soon, and neither you nor the commander will see me again. She finished up with the unpacking. Medication, supplements, replacement batteries, presumably for these leg devices. It all went onto the coffee table in front of the settee. Guess that's where she expected me to camp out for the duration. To be fair, I hadn't thought of how I would exist outside of my medbay bed. It seemed like a lifetime ago since I was even able to stand on my own, let alone make decisions about where I was going to vegetate. I moved to get out of the wheelchair, but she tutted and wheeled me around to the sofa. I stifled my grunts of pain and she helped me onto it. Next, she grabbed the blanket from one of the cupboards across the room and placed it on the arm of the sofa. It crossed my mind how much upkeep might go into having spare quarters, ready for the unexpected visitors to the ship. Ready for all the unexpected visitors this ship must pick up on its missions. My mind boggled, distracted, wondering about cleaning schedules and whether the rooms were made up permanently or just before they were occupied. My mind did that. I convinced myself now and again it's a way of keeping it plastic, able to look for associations, patterns and connections. Honestly though, I think right now it's just doing it as a distraction from the intense physical and social discomfort I'd just been experiencing for the last several minutes. Nurse Pratchett pointed at a console on the wall. This controls the temperature and airflow. I'm going to turn it up a degree or two to make it more comfortable for you until you're moving around again. This is the intercom. If you need anything, just hit it or say computer and the name of the department that you need to be linked up to. Thank you. I tried to smile even though inside my heart was still breaking. I didn't know which was worse, having people around me trying to act normal or having no distractions and being able to wallow in my feelings. Actually, yeah, I did. Definitely having no one around was better. Pratchett moved towards the door and turned back. You know, we have a ship's counsellor if you want to talk to someone. You can send them a message from the computer whenever you're ready. I thanked her again, and finally she left.